Hey everyone, and welcome to the Guest Experience Show, brought to you by Roller, the modern all-in-one venue management software for the leisure and attractions industry. I'm your host, Josh Liebman, and on this show, I'll be speaking with thought leaders in the global attractions industry about all things guest experience. We'll talk about industry trends, technology, removing friction, and how to grow your business by focusing on all aspects of guest experience, including the best ways to attract and engage new guests, delivering a remarkable experience, and building repeat visitors and advocates to your business. Seb Gregory is a senior user experience designer for Roller. In this interview, Seb talks about how user experience can make or break the guest experience at critical points in the guest journey. If the user experience is poor, it can unravel an otherwise positive experience where a guest may have had several positive interactions. Additionally, Roller's online checkout is regularly improved upon through small iterations combined with occasional large enhancements to the overall program, all based on the latest trends in user experience. And lastly, Seb walks us through Roller's new progressive checkout released at the end of 2022, where the results have included more transactions, more revenue per transaction, and reduced labor required by the venue to manage key tasks. Now, please enjoy this interview with Seb Gregory. Hey, Seb, I am so excited to have you on the Guest Experience Show today. How you doing?
Hi, Josh. Thanks for having me. Yeah, great to be here.
Yeah, fantastic. So, would love to jump into this. As we get started, Seb, can you tell us what you do? What's your role with Roller?
Okay, cool. So I'm one of the user experience designers at Roller. So what that means is I'm sort of with our other designers responsible for the look and feel of our apps. And I guess day to day, we are working on solving, client problems, but also exploring new opportunities for our clients and how we can, optimize our platform of apps for our customers. And so I actually build a set of designs and we hand it off to our engineers and they build the features and then it goes out into the wild and then we sort of iterate on that. And I would say that probably, most of our work is probably incremental changes to our platform. And then every now and then we get the chance to, work on an app, build something from scratch. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
Cool. So from just kind of a high level viewpoint here, can you share just why user experience is so important, particularly for a technology product?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, it encompasses a lot of things. It encompasses everything from how the text is laid out on the screen to the general flow of an app. At the end of the day, you're trying to get a customer from point A to B, and we're trying to facilitate that in a way that is really pleasing for them, so they maybe do it again. And also we have to balance that with, the technical limitations of, the apps we're using. So the user experience is sort of the conduit between, a problem and then the sort of technical engineering capabilities of a team. And so, yeah, it's a bit of art and it's a bit of science. And I think most people notice when, they've used an app or web experience that's been designed properly and user experience has been thought about. And you definitely notice it if it hasn't been thought about. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love what you said of it's a little bit art, it's a little bit science, because there's obviously the back end, the huge tech engine that's running behind it. But the art component probably is about the simplicity and the way that the user sees it, and the way you said it has to be very pleasing. So I imagine that is about specific fonts, specific colors, probably shapes of buttons and things like that. Are those all things that that you look at as far as from the front end standpoint that the consumer is seeing, and that this might be blue, this might be red, this might have a rounded edge, and that's all very intentional, right?
100%. And I think we're very lucky these days because the landscape is so broad. We all use apps day to day. And the sort of best practices for what you were talking about, button sizes, text sizes, spacing, image sizes, even the way things load on a screen, the way things animate when you interact with it. Like there's a lot of stuff out there now. And we think about a lot of that when we're building out our project. So we sort of have to know a bit about how it's actually built in the code, but then, have to have an understanding of first design principles. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then one of the most important reasons why it's so critical, and really as we kind of segue into the broader topic, is because we're talking about transactions and making it very easy for someone to make a purchase. And you said a couple of minutes ago, yeah, you've probably seen when the user experience has been thought out, when it's been very intentional, and you've definitely seen it when it is not. And I can think of several examples in my mind right now where I've either abandoned a purchase or have at least been extremely frustrated and have questioned, am I going to do this again? Would I recommend this to somebody else? And a lot of that has to do with the user experience of the actual purchase process, which might be completely disconnected from the experience in and of itself. Everything else might be running very well from as far as, what the business owners, what the managers, what the leaders, what those who are interacting with the guests, all of that can be going very well from a front of house standpoint, but with a poor user experience, it can really unravel a lot of other areas that guests might be satisfied, because this could be a looming cloud over their head, right?
Yeah, you're spot on. Like often the online checkout experience, for example, that first transaction is the first point of contact that a guest will have with the venue. So it's their first experience with you. And if that user experience is poor, then that reflects on the venue or the operator. And so our venues put a lot of trust in us to, take their guests through that first experience. So we need to really be sure that it is like a beautiful and easy to use experience that's sort of frictionless. But it also needs to be done in a way that, optimizes the sort of revenue for the venue. We're here to make money for them and save time. That's what we do as SaaS companies. So that at the end of the day is our goal as well.
Yeah. So earlier today, I just got a survey emailed to me from an experience that I took part in recently, local near me, and I bought tickets online over the phone through their web browser. And when it prompted me for feedback on what could have been done to improve, I had to be kind of diplomatic, but I talked about how frustrating it actually was to be able to buy tickets. And, part of it was, it clearly wasn't optimized for mobile. It didn't have Apple Pay, so I had to pull out my credit card. I had to type the whole credit card number, and I even said it was very cold outside the day that I did that, and I wanted to minimize the amount of time that my gloves were off my hands, right? And doing that, and that's what went through my mind from the user experiencing that type of online checkout. And I can imagine these are the things that you think about, these very nitty gritty details of how is the end user actually going to use this, and what are going to be the other things all going around surrounding them that might impact how they might be looking at the software product, which probably has to do a lot with seeing what you can't necessarily see in front of you.
Yeah, you're right. Like, I think we know anecdotally, even from what you're talking about there, that, if a guest has a great experience, they're more likely to return. But if they don't, then it's the opposite. And so we have to think about that. We have to think about, just like what you were saying, how is the guest interacting with the checkout? It needs to almost be unmemorable, if that's a word. I don't know if it is, because it needs to be so frictionless that they're not thinking about the process that they just went through on the checkout. They're thinking about the experience that they're about to attend in the venue. And so I think we do, it starts at the very start, thinking about things like, can you navigate through this flow easily with one hand while I'm ordering to, booking a play center and I'm feeding my kid with the other hand? They're real scenarios. And while you're in the cold, trying to book quickly for, some sort of activity. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you definitely need to think about those real world examples and put yourself in the place of the user.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So you talked about earlier, you said a lot of the updates are incremental with the occasional kind of new release of a product. So can you talk about I would say how the user experience, particularly for Roller, has evolved from where it was previously to now where it's at today?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think like when we started building our apps, and I was pretty early to the company, and at that time, so there's this concept in product design and user experience design called mobile first, and it's this principle where you need to really think about mobile interface first because majority of users are on mobile these days, and we know that over 80% of our guests are on mobile interfaces. So I think when we started, that wasn't a thing. And so we had to incrementally make improvements to, make our app perform well on mobile devices. But I think it comes to a point where, you've got some big features planned or you've got some certain goals that you want to achieve. And you're like, okay, I think we need to build something fresh from the ground up. And, it's really exciting when you get to do that. It is a big investment, but it gives you the chance to like take stock of what you've done well, what you've done poorly, and take stock of the rest of the e-commerce landscape, what other people are doing well, and then try and kind of set a best practice for our industry. So yeah, I was lucky enough to work on a big project, a progressive checkout app in the last few years. And it was certainly a fairly big undertaking, but the results have been quite good. So we're really happy with it.
So let's talk more about that. Tell us about the progressive checkout. It's been all the buzz lately. What's new about it? What's different? And I would say walk us through it.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, to give a refresher, so our venues use our online checkout app to sell their products online. Everything from session passes, party products, gift cards, memberships, even merchandise. It needs to be quite flexible, and we definitely came to that point a few years ago where we wanted to improve the performance of the app and modernize it as well. And then we also have a few quite large features that we want to build on, so we needed to future-proof the app. And so we spent the last 2 years researching, designing, and building the new checkout experience. And it started at the very start, talking about the things we were just talking about, understanding like how our users actually using this, but also looking at the landscape of, what are the best practice apps in e-commerce, not just in our industry, across like everything, and really taking the best parts for it and building our own app. And so, yeah, we released it at the end of last year. We had a beta program, then released it publicly, and it's being adopted really well by our clients. It's performing much better than we expected. And yeah, I think it's sort of that investment has paid off. I guess from a technical point of view as well, like, it is a large investment, but we get to use the latest technologies so that we can make it as fast and secure as possible. But also take the time to think about things like accessibility or like increasing the conversion rate or increasing the add to cart value. So yeah, there was a lot of thinking that went into it, and, we will still be iterating on it, but yeah, we launched it last year and it's going really well.
Nice. Can we unpack that a little bit more? Can we talk about maybe some of the specific features that were a significant enhancement from the previous version of the product?
Okay, yeah. So we tried to outline some of the problems that we're having first. So one example was that we're having some venues reporting that people were booking the wrong date, and that was a bit of a learning for us. And so we needed to investigate that and then come up with an idea, a UI that was almost foolproof. If you're booking a time-based activity, you should know what date and time you're booking it for. So the UI and the new one it's super sleek. You have to select the date first, then the times appear. You can see the availability of those sessions. pick a session, then your tickets appear. We also added this concept of a homepage. So this is an optional page, but our checkout traditionally has just been a listing of products. It's very transactional, and we wanted to give the venues the ability to, make their brand and their imagery the hero of the app. It should feel like it's customized for them. And so they can turn on this landing page, this homepage, and customize it with different widgets. You can add things like product carousels. You can add what we call a call to action block, which is essentially just an image and a text and a button, but you can use that to, upsell promotions or specific products. And then we have a featured product block as well. So you can give more context to some featured products. And we've found that's been super helpful for a lot of our clients that, perhaps they drive a lot of traffic from social media channels. And instead of dumping them straight into a very transactional experience, it takes them to a landing page that gives them context to the venue and the products. But also it's very flexible. So if I'm running a Halloween promotion, I can bump it straight to the top, and it's very easy for the venue to do that without adjusting their website. There's one other big change that we made. There's lots of little ones, but one of the other big ones was we updated our embedded experience. So some of our venues choose to embed the checkout on their website. And so there's two options. You can embed it within your website, or you can, click off to an external page and it's a standalone experience. And for our embedded experience, traditionally, you had to sort of mess with the layout of your website, and we could never be sure of the experience that their guests were going to go through, because it could be placed on any page and we didn't know what the UI would be looking like. So we updated that. So now you can just add a very small piece of code to any button, and it pulls the checkout in over your existing website, and it doesn't affect the flow or the layout of your website. And that's super useful because, you might have spent a lot of money and time building that brand equity on your website, and it explains your products really well. You want to keep your guests in that experience. So just having something that slides out really easily is quite neat. And also it decreases your bounce rate, which it doesn't directly affect your ranking on Google, but it's one of the things they use to help assess the performance of your website. So yeah, there's some of the bigger things. There's a bit of an undertaking there, but yeah.
Sure. So a couple questions. If you use that new embed where it pulls out in front of the web, can you still navigate the website without disrupting the transactional flow that's pulled out over it?
Yeah, you can. And if you close the checkout and then you navigate the website, it'll remember where you're at. Even if you change pages, it'll remember if you've got some products in the cart. You can even do things like link directly to a product instead of to the checkout. So if you've got a page explaining your party products, you can just link directly to that product and just take one step out of the purchase flow. So it's quite neat. And on mobile, it just slides it, over the entire screen. So it feels like it's part of the same website.
Yeah. Cool. So what's the advantage and the difference between building out the homepage versus embedding it onto the website and linking to the online checkout on the website? I know you covered it a little bit, but as far as to really sort of expand on that.
So you can do both, but we disable the homepage once you embed a checkout. So because the purpose of the homepage is to, act like a mini website or a landing page. So it wouldn't make sense to then show that in a flyer on your website. So when you open up the checkout from an embedded experience, it'll just show the listing of products or link to it directly to a product. But then, as I said, if you've got other links to your checkout, say on a Facebook ad or an Instagram ad, and you want to go straight to the checkout, skip your website, that will just automatically go to that homepage and it'll be enabled for that experience. So you can send them to your standalone experience. So you're not locked into either or. Some people are using both at the same time. Some people just aren't using the homepage because they prefer just to use it like they were with the legacy checkout, the old one. And that was one of our goals as well, was, the new checkout has to behave like the old checkout so you can easily migrate to the new one.
Mm. So you mentioned that since it rolled out at the end of 2022, you said that it's been received very well and exceeded expectations. Can you talk about what it has done to exceed those expectations, whether it's positive feedback from guests or as well as sales and revenue for the clients as well, for the venues?
Yeah, it's interesting. The sales and revenue piece is that kind of really excites me when you can build something that's really beautiful and actually has a net sort of revenue impact. But first of all, I think that majority of the clients that are using the new checkout and have used the old one, we can compare their conversion rates, and the majority of them have increased or just kept the same conversion rate. Some of them have just blown it out of the park and have really much higher conversion rates than what they did previously, higher than sort of 5%, which in the world of e-commerce, 0.5% means, a lot more money and a lot more feet in the door. So that's been excellent. That's one of the metrics we've been tracking. One of our other goals was our add to cart value, and we're still sort of tracking down that data, but anecdotally, I was speaking to a venue operator the other day, and he runs like a venue that has a rock climbing, trampoline, soft play, all in the one venue. And he was speaking to me about how, they have this add-on where, you've bought a ticket, an hour ticket, and once you arrive at the venue, you pay like an extra $10 and you can get an extra half an hour. And everyone who arrives at the venue, they purchase it. And he was asking me, like, how come, like, I can't replicate that experience on the checkout? And that was with the old checkout. And with the new checkout, we have this concept called contextual add-ons. And it is essentially, you can serve up add-ons within the context of the user selecting tickets for a product. So what he can do is, when someone's adding a session ticket, at the same time, he can add that $10 add-on and replicate that experience that is, increasing revenue in his venue. I think also, like, when talking about revenue and things like that, we're also talking about like saving the venue's money and time. So we've got plans. We're working on features at the moment and they should be coming out in this half of the year, where guests can manage their own memberships and eventually their own bookings. So a lot of our venues employ full-time staff just to sit on the phone and field calls from people, updating memberships or changing membership details. And so if we can take some of those tasks and let the guest handle it themselves in the app, that's ultimately going to save them time.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not well, there's the benefit of selling more tickets, so you're getting increased foot traffic. You said the add to cart value, so the actual transaction size seeing increases, and then just overall benefits to the business, that they can actually reduce staff, reduce labor, because more agency is given over to the guest to be able to have more of a self-service experience where they rely less on the staff. They're making less phone calls, less inquiries. That frees up the venue to reduce labor that previously was necessary, but now no longer is, because of the great user experience that guests are having.
Yeah, man, you said it better than I did. Yeah.
All I did was take what you said and just shrunk it down into a couple sentences there.
Yeah, nice.
One of the things that you mentioned too that I'd love to come back to is about the calendar and guests booking certain dates. You said that previously there had potentially been some confusion of guests booking wrong dates. For those who sell admission based on sessions or date specific tickets, how does this help guests understand what's available on certain days? Have there been improvements in that area as well?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we migrated our existing feature over where so you select the date for the product. Let's say it's a mountain bike session, and then you can see an array of buttons with the times, and inside of those buttons you can see how many tickets are remaining, and you can turn that on or off. So that's a really great indicator to the guests, of busy periods and things like that. A lot of our venues also sell party-based products or group ticket products, which they often book well in advance. And so we knew we needed some sort of calendar interface that, would really clearly and beautifully show the guest projected availability and, whether or not days are busy or if they're blocked off completely. And so we built that, and that's a feature that you can open up on any of our time-based products. But then also, if you say navigate to a product that isn't available within the next week, it'll just show the calendar straight away. So you can jump straight into that experience. I know when I need to book, I can find out if it's available.
I'm curious about maybe the psychology of guest behavior of knowing how much availability there is, if that steers them towards wanting to grab one of the last few spots when there's very little availability left, or does it say, oh, there's plenty over here, so I'm gonna move over here? Ideally, for the venue, you want to be able to space out the business, and you want to be able to push people towards times where there is more availability and sell that. And obviously, then dynamic pricing and specials, that goes into that. But wonder as far as what you know from guest behavior, do people want something that has very limited supply, or do they usually gravitate to something where there's a lot more open space?
Do you know what? I'll be honest, I don't know, but I know that it's a phenomenon. There's this thing of like scarcity, and for e-commerce, for physical products, it works really well. So when we brought that feature in, we knew that people would either use it and they'd benefit from it, or people just wouldn't, because for some venues, they don't want to be like, say, if you were going to like a wave park, you don't want to be sharing the waves with everyone else. So in that instance, you'd use the projected availability to find the least busy time. But then for other examples, they might latch onto that scarcity phenomenon where they're like, oh, I need to get in now. This is, being bought very quickly. So yeah, I'll be honest, I don't understand the full psychology, but we've just given them the option to say, well, you can use it in any way you want, and you can turn it off if you want. So
yeah, well, you make a good point that it depends by the venue. If there are more people, am I going to have a diminished experience, or will I actually have an enhanced? Will it be an improved experience, or will it be completely neutral? Right? If I'm on Expedia and I'm booking a plane ticket, seeing that there's very few seats left might really kind of get my gears going to say, oh, I've got urgency because of the scarcity. Same thing if with the hotel rooms, and oh, these are selling out. I better commit to this trip beforehand. So yeah, I'm sure. And then in a wave park, something like that, if you're sharing the waves, to say no, I want to have as much as the water as as possible. So yeah, I'm sure it depends on the specifics of the venue type. So Seb, as we start to wind this down here and get close to the end, for venues who are currently using Roller, how can they implement the new progressive checkout?
Cool. Yeah. So anyone using Roller Payments who is a current venue will have access to the progressive checkout. So and you'll see that in the venue manager under apps. There'll be a section for progressive checkout, and we've got a lot of really great content on our knowledge base, and also our academy, Roller Academy. You can just Google that, and there's some really easy to follow videos that can help you set it up in the best practice. But it is also easy enough just to set up by yourself. So and then I guess for people who are listening and they're not using Roller at the moment, we actually have a product tour up on the website at the moment. If you go to our online ticketing page, you can click through and get an experience, sort of look and feel of how the guest experiences the checkout.
Nice. Excellent. Very cool. Fantastic. Well, Seb, thanks so much for joining. This was just such a fascinating chat. I always learn so much when we get together and we talk, so I really appreciate it. For everyone out there who's watching and listening, if you enjoyed this interview, please leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. It'll help other people find us. And until next time, we'll see you right here on the Guest Experience Show.